got to see some footage of this film in New York and here in New Zealand, and during the presentations, Mike and Eric said designing the Alita character, there were over like 5,000 iterations. Can you talk about what the most challenging part of realizing that character was?
Yeah, so when you talk about 5,000 iterations, one of it might be like you're looking at, the shape of the ears. One might be you're looking at the shape of the nose. We put those all together into a character, and what that really means is there were probably around 200 or so different versions of the character. Because you look at Rosa's performance, which was beautiful, and you look at Alita as a design and where you need to go with it, and you come up with your best guess of what that character needs to be, and you match the two together, and you look at what works and what doesn't work, and you just go back and keep refining that. So there's a technological aspect to it because there's a lot of detail that you have to carry through, not just for the motion, but for how the eyes look, how the texture of the skin responds to light, but there's also a holistic way of just looking at the character as a character and just running the scenes and saying, does it work? Like it's almost like a casting process. And it's like, well, that's not quite right. Let me go back and try this again. So you're really constantly iterating on the character until what you see just plays across all the scenes. You're able to capture all the beats, but you've also captured a consistent character.
And you're dealing with lots of other more extreme non-human characters as well, different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
When you put them together, whether it's a real set or a CG set, like what's the most difficult action set piece to shoot with all these different size of characters?
Well, the different sizes is an important consideration because for actors, like we work with actors as much as possible because you want to get the drama, but eyeline is the critical thing, and when they're different sizes, it's always hard to get the right eyeline. So like if we had scenes between like Rosa and Jackie, they would be like on, he'd be looking at the floor and she'd be looking up at a stick above him. But then we'd also do a bit where they could just play the scenes off of each other, so understand what the drama is. And then you take all those pieces and you put them together, and you try to craft the performance from all those aspects that work, because you might get something different when they're playing against each other versus the bit that they're doing each on their own, and you have to understand, is it in the way the dialogue is delivered, or is it the tilt of the head that's reacting to a certain beat? And those are the things that when you're making the character, you have to kind of synthesize into making the performance be something that suits what you're seeing on screen.
And we're near the finish line now, and once you start seeing these all the work come together, the final shots. What's your favorite moment of what you've seen so far?
I think my favorite moment is the scene inside the spaceship where she discovers her berserker body, because that's a turning point. You don't know who she is as a character. She doesn't know who she is as a character. And that's when she first starts to understand that there might be something more there. And so that's always an interesting point for a character in any film. Yeah.
You've worked on Avatar before this. Can you talk about how the learnings and the processes developed on that project helped inform or change how you approached this one?
Sure. Before Avatar, we always thought about visual effects sort of in compartments. You'd be making a character, you'd be making a set extension, or you'd be doing some, physical thing like an explosion. But what Jim wanted to do on Avatar was to integrate the live action and the digital and make them be seamless. So the idea that he could shoot in a virtual world with a virtual camera and see what was going on was about breaking down the barriers between live action and digital filmmaking. On this film, we took that further, but also in a different direction, where here we were in a live action world, but with a digital character in the middle of it. But we used a lot of those same techniques that we had developed for performance capture, especially for facial performance capture, and just brought those into this live action setting. So Rosa could be there with all the other actors and be part of the drama, and Robert could direct her. And again, there was no difference. We just became part of the film crew.
We got to see some of this in action, new techniques, the virtual camera, just the sheer level of detail and animation work. Does that help inform future things Weta does, whether it's Avatar 2 or other projects that have as much digital work?
Every project, we take what we learn from it and bank it for the next one, because you're constantly building, your toolkit, and then you wait to see what the script is and what is it that we're being asked to do, and you look at what you've got and what you're missing, and you just take it from there.
With all the work that went into designing these characters and the processes, especially when it comes to Alita herself, which is a character we've never seen like that before, does that make it like, I don't want to say easy, but does that reduce so much of the challenge if we were to make like an Alita sequel and see this character again? Is it much easier the second time around?
Usually it is easier the second time around. Having gotten to work on a few sequels, I can attest to that, because most of the time, the first time around, you are just trying to figure out what and who the character is. Once you've established that, it makes it a lot easier to get into the flow of the character. So yeah, hopefully there'll be a sequel.
With Robert Rodriguez as director, he's no stranger to experimenting, whether it's 3D styles in movies, even doing VR now. Can you talk about working with him on this project?
Yeah, Robert's great because he is so open to new ideas. Like, having come from a background where Robert's so used to doing things himself, right, editing and scoring and even visual effects, that you can talk to him about any aspect of it. And if it's something that's new, he's not fazed by it at all. It just fits right in with, okay, let's try this and let's see where that takes us.
For my last question now, I just thinking about the virtual camera and how fun that was to actually get to use it in action. Does using that like change how you think, not just from a cinematography standpoint, but how you can approach and design any scene for the future? Like, how do you go back to a traditional camera after you being able to do something like that?
Well, interestingly, virtual cameras get used a lot for even previs these days, right? Because you start to think about it not so much as storyboarding, you're thinking of the cinematography right off the bat. And so that helps the process as well. So yeah, it's a technology that, we sort of cracked it on Avatar, but you're seeing a lot of other films adapt it now.
For your team's work, this film has changed release dates a couple of times now. Has that significantly impacted what you've had to do or been able to do with that extra time?
With extra time just means you can get a few more things right. So, yeah.
Awesome. For my last question then, what are you most excited for fans to see from this when it releases in theaters?
What I'm hoping people take away from this is kind of the humanity in the character, right? We create these digital characters in a way to try to express something that you wouldn't be able to see if it was something that you were too familiar with. We're trying to look at something in a new and unique way, but still make sure that the humanity is there. It's always that walking that edge, between what's real and what's familiar versus, hey, I've never seen this before and maybe I need to pay attention.